You want to know how a life can turn on a single trigger pull? Let me tell you, sometimes what you don't do haunts you longer than the kill. Yeah, I know, sounds like a line from a war movie, but I've lived it. You ever lay in dirt for 72 hours straight, breathing dust so thick it cakes the back of your throat, muscles locked up, scope pressed to your eye until you're not sure where the world ends and your reticle begins? That's how it started for me. In Afghanistan, staring through the glass at a man whose next move would mean life or death for people I'd never meet. You blink, you miss the shot. History changes. No pressure, right? My name's Alex Morgan. Used to be Captain Alexandra Morgan, if you dig deep enough. These days, I'm just a range safety clerk at Fort Benning, Georgia. Paperwork, inventory, cleaning rifles. Nobody notices the woman who moves quiet, catalogs every exit in the room, keeps her back to the wall. Yeah, they joke about me being a little uptight. Guess they think I'm just another civilian who keeps her head down, doesn't complain about overtime. If they only knew. But let me back up a sec, because you need to hear about that day in Afghanistan, my first real ghost story. I was 2,100 meters out, wind howling so hard the dust looked like fog, everything distorted. My target was this high-value guy, Al-Zahani, 47 Americans dead because of him. They told me it was now or never. I ran the numbers. Wind, humidity, Coriolis, bullet drop, the works. Felt the shot in my bones more than my brain. When I squeezed the trigger, there was this pause, like the whole world held its breath. The bullet found its mark. The body dropped before the sound even reached the compound. One shot, one kill. They called me a legend. Didn't feel like one that you do a thing like that, and they think you're a machine. Just squeeze and move on. But every shot stays with you, trust me. That one, I could live with. It was the next one, years later, that damn near broke me. Flash forward. Fort Benning. I keep my head down, play the civilian, act like I can barely field strip an M4. They don't see me watching, how I measure the tree line, count the seconds between wind gusts, picture every angle, every threat. Then one day Colonel Donovan shows up, new commander, walks in with that special ops swagger. He looks me over like he's scanning for weaknesses. You know your weapons, Ms. Morgan? He asks, all friendly. I play dumb. Just good at paperwork, sir. He almost smiles. Almost. But then things start shifting. Suddenly, I'm not just a clerk. They bring in this old-timer, General Hayes, a legend. The man invented half the sniper doctrine we still use. He shakes my hand, looks me in the eye, and I know he knows. You don't pick up these skills from 3 years of inventory, he says. Next thing I know, I'm in a room with Hayes, Donovan, and some brass I don't recognize. They start talking Project Longshot, classified programs, neural patterns, AI snipers. It hits me. They've been tracking me, even after I disappeared. They know about Ghost. Yeah, that's what they called me, Ghost. 121 confirmed. Places you'd never want to see. But there's one they don't know about, Syria, 3 years back. My target was a Spetsnaz commander named Petrov. Smart, ruthless, and slippery. I had him in my sights, but he moved behind a civilian, used them like a shield. My finger was on the trigger, but I couldn't take the shot. Not that time. 2 days later, he bombed a SEAL team. 7 good men dead. That's the shot I never took, and it's the one that kept me up at night. So, here I am, thinking I've finally buried Ghost. But no, Petrov's back, and he's just taken a facility hostage in Alaska. He wants the Argus system, a prototype AI that can do what I do, only faster. Except the catch? It's built on neural patterns stolen from me and a handful of others. They want me to help take him down, one more shot. I say no. Then they show me a grainy photo. It's Petrov, older but the same eyes. That unfinished business burns through me like acid that I lay out my terms. My way, no spotter, no support, full deniability if I want to disappear again after. They agree. Sometimes you can see it in a man's eyes. Donovan, Hayes, they know this isn't just another mission. This is personal, and not just for me. Hayes lost people to Petrov decades ago. This is his Ghost 2. We fly out to Alaska. Sub-zero, wind biting through every layer. I trek 8 kilometers through snow, settle in on the East Ridge, my Chaitak M200 in hand. I become the rifle. The world narrows to angles, distance, wind, pressure, light. Petrov's got the hostages scattered, forcing us to pick which group lives. Classic KGB playbook. Hayes calls it the mirror box. Force your enemy to choose between impossible options, then exploit the hesitation. I wait. I watch. I breathe. Through the glass, I see Petrov move, using civilians as shields, prepping a convoy to roll out with the Argus system. I want to take the shot so bad it makes my teeth hurt. But he's too smart, never exposes himself clean. My hands don't shake, but inside I'm boiling. I see a way, a ricochet shot off a storage container. It's insane, borderline suicidal at this distance. Even the computers can't calculate it. But me? I can feel it. It's not math, it's like a sixth sense. My own bullet, my own body, same as that day in Afghanistan. Trust your instincts, not the computer, Hayes whispers in my ear. I line up, feel the angles, send it. The shot sings, a spark, a shift, Petrov goes down. The scientist he was holding as a shield stumbles away, shaken but alive. I exhale for the first time in years, all the way out. Assault team rolls in. Delta sweeps the building. Hostages freed. Argus recovered. I watch them drag Petrov out. Alive, just barely. There's satisfaction, sure. But it's not revenge. It's closure. The shot I didn't take in Syria haunted me. The one I did take in Alaska set me free. That's not the end, though, is it? The military wants to put me back in the shadows, use me for the next impossible job. But Hayes offers something else. Help build the future. Teach a new generation not just how to shoot, but how to decide when not to. Not just to be a weapon, but a conscience. I say yes, but on my terms. Full autonomy, full transparency, no secrets. 3 months later, I'm standing in front of a classroom full of the best snipers in the country, teaching them what no computer will ever understand. That it's not just about math or tech or muscle memory. It's about the gut, the feel, the choice that SO tell me. What would you have done in my place? Would you have taken the shot in Syria, knowing what you know now? Or would you have held your fire? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear where you stand on what's right and what's necessary. Because the real war isn't always out there on some frozen ridge. Sometimes it's right here, inside. You ever find yourself standing at the front of a room, looking at a bunch of fresh faces, and think, who the hell put me in charge? That was me, 3 months after Alaska, after the impossible ricochet, after the shot that proved to everyone, including myself, that a ghost still had something to offer. I was teaching at Fort Bragg, in this state-of-the-art classroom with simulation rigs and high-speed cameras, looking at the next generation of America's top shooters, Delta, SEALs, Force Recon. Every one of them had that hungry look in their eye, the same one I saw in the mirror a decade ago. Most of them had heard the stories about Ghost. Some probably thought they were just legends. But let me tell you, it's a hell of a thing to become the story people whisper about over cheap beers and bad coffee at midnight. And now, somehow, the Ghost had to teach the living. I started with the truth. You've all been told this is an advanced sniper course, and that's not a lie. But it's not the full story. You're here because you have a shot at something more. Ballistic integration, they call it. But what it really means, you need to learn how to feel the bullet's path, how to make decisions that can haunt you or set you free. Some of the guys looked skeptical. One or two, like Ortega from Recon, this kid with eyes like an old man, seemed to get it right away. Maybe they'd seen their own ghosts. Between drills, I'd walk them through scenarios, not just the physics, but the choices. When to shoot, when to hold back, when a clean kill isn't worth the price. You know what I mean? I'd ask, looking for a spark of understanding. And most days, I'd see it flicker. Not always. But that's the job. One afternoon, after a long day in the sim bay, Ortega cornered me in the hallway. "Ma'am, can I ask you something? Back in Afghanistan, is it true you waited 3 days for a shot?" I just smiled, a little sad, a little proud. Yeah, that happened. Sometimes the best move is the one you don't make. Patience can save more lives than a bullet ever will. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't sure whether to believe it. Kids like him, they all want to be the hero until the first time they're faced with an impossible choice. I told him, Don't let them turn you into a machine. If you ever feel the doubt, if you ever see the face of a civilian in your scope, you call me first. I'll always pick up. You understand. He did. I could see it in his eyes. Not all my days were spent in classrooms. Hayes kept me looped in on the fallout from Alaska. Petrov survived his wounds, ended up in a secure federal medical ward, handcuffed to a bed. The debriefs lasted for weeks. The Argus system went back under lock and key. New protocols, new teams, more questions than answers. The intelligence guys circled like sharks, trying to squeeze every drop of information from Petrov's past and the tech he almost stole. But what nobody understood, except maybe Hayes, was that the real story wasn't about hardware or spycraft. It was about the choices we make when nobody's looking. The line between machine and human, calculation and conscience. There were days I thought about disappearing again, burning the fake IDs, vanishing into some small town out west, taking a job at a truck stop where nobody ever asks about the past. But every time that idea crossed my mind, I remembered Alaska, that ricochet shot, and the scientist whose life I'd saved by trusting something no computer could replicate. I remembered the look on Hayes's face when he realized the future needed more than algorithms and protocols. It needed people who understood the weight of a trigger. Then the letters started arriving. Quiet notes, hand-delivered through official channels, sometimes with nothing but a code name and a date. From shooters I'd trained, from commanders in the field. We held fire. You were right. Or we waited. The window opened. Everyone came home. Little victories. Nothing in the news, nothing anybody else would notice. But for me, they meant everything. Now and then, Donovan would call, usually after too many hours at his desk. "You keeping busy, Ghost?" He'd joke, but there was always something underneath, like he was asking, "Are you at peace?" I'd tell him the truth. Some nights, yeah. Some nights, no. He understood. Guys like us, we never really leave the field. You know, it's funny. Hayes once told me the military would rather replace us with code and circuitry if they could, erase the human element, take out the chance for regret or mercy. But he was wrong about one thing. In the end, even the best AI can't feel the weight of a life, or the chill of a cold trigger, or the way a choice can echo for years. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever really be done. If one day I'll finally disappear for good, just fade into the crowd, nobody left to remember Ghost. But then I see Ortega hit a near-impossible shot in a storm, or I hear that another operator somewhere held their fire, saved a life, made the right call when the easy choice would have been the loud one. And I realize, maybe that's what redemption really looks like. Not a single shot, not a headline, but a handful of small mercies handed down from one generation to the next. Maybe that's all any of us get, a chance to leave the world a little better than we found it. Yeah, I'm still here, still teaching, still watching for that spark in someone's eyes when they realize the real fight isn't always about pulling the trigger. Sometimes it's about holding your fire, even when every instinct is screaming at you to act. And if you're out there listening, if you've ever stood on that line, finger on the trigger, heart pounding, knowing there's no easy answer, I hope you remember this. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that saves you. Sometimes the ghost you're running from is really just the person you were always meant to become. Now, I'll throw it back to you. What would you do, faced with the impossible? Let me know, because I think this conversation matters more than any shot I ever took. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we keep each other human.